I told her if she would do it, I would do it. And I thought, well, she's never going to do
pressure.
it. She's never done more. She hadn't done more than a sprint.
Oh, really? Okay.
And so she called me back 2 weeks later and said I signed up for Ironman Arizona.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Coaches on Couches.
Being slouches.
We've got Murray Scott on the couch today.
Non-slouch. We got a
Non-slouch.
non-slouch, as everyone will learn.
I am Coach Dale Sanford.
I am Coach Bryant Funston.
We are co-founders of BPC Performance Coaching. We specialize in helping time-crunched athletes optimize their busy schedules so they can maximize their athletic performance. Every BPC coach is trained in our 5 pillars coaching system that's been developed over the last decade through our work with athletes of all ages and ability levels, from fresh off the couch to world championship competitors.
This couch?
Not this couch.
Not this couch.
You can find out more about BPC by going to buildpeakcompete.com. Check it out on Facebook and YouTube at Build Peak Compete or Instagram at BPC Performance.
Bam.
One more little note. We've got some free race entries to give away thanks to our friends at PR Event Management. Basically one for every triathlon that they put on this year. So stay tuned for how to enter that.
Yeah, the most immediate being Memphis in May.
Yep. Sprint and Olympic. We've got an entry for both. So if you're interested.
Few, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's got to be one of the few paying out to amateurs a decent chunk of change.
I honestly don't know. I mean, there might be...
Murray, you can help us on this too.
I don't know of any.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with it, if you do the amateur challenge at Memphis in May, you do the sprint and the Olympic, and the top 15 male and female get paid 15 deep. And I don't know another triathlon in the country that pays amateurs.
Yeah, so if you're listening to this before May, what is it, 18th, 19th, I think?
18th and 19th, yep. Put it on your calendars.
Yeah, put it on the calendar. Come on out. And weather's guaranteed to be awesome. Cool. It's going to be like San Diego in the winter.
It's, similar to San
Diego. It's like 70 degrees, no humidity. I think it's guaranteed.
Yep. All right, before we get to Murray, shout-outs.
Shout-outs. I'll kick it off.
Funston, I'll let you get the first one.
Yeah. My first shout-out goes to Yomuf Kajuchka. Kajeka? Sorry, I totally butchered that. But indoor mile world record in a blazing fast time of 3:47:01.
Yeah, I looked at it. It was it's 1.44 seconds faster than the previous world record.
That's crazy.
So that's not really a small amount. That's a pretty big.
Murray, you can knock that out, right?
No problem. Every mile I run at least 3:47.
Yeah, repeats. All right, I've got a few, since we're talking about triathlon mostly today. I've got a few here. One is Justin Lippert and Missy Lestrange. Justin obviously killed us all last year, and he claimed 3 different national titles in sprint, Olympic, and long course. And he also did it all in a Speedo and a mustache.
Aero.
Extremely aero.
The mustache isn't.
And Justin actually, so him and Missy were both announced as USA Triathlon or Triathletes of the Year. And Justin actually founded the Full Send Triathlon Club this last year, which I really appreciate because he's trying to continue to bring in younger athletes into the sport, mostly college age. And these are the age groups that we need coming in to keep the growth of the sport alive. So he prefers to full send it. I'm more of a 3/4.
Mm-hmm.
3/4 send.
Yeah, I'm happy if we get 3/4 send.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy on that.
It's tough to do the full send.
Missy, she also crushed some people over the season and claimed more than one title in her age group sprint, Olympic, and then she went on to 70.3 Worlds and Kona and won her age group in all of those races as well. So
They sound like deserving recipients.
covered the spread there. My next are USAT Duathletes of the Year, Todd Buckingham and Amy Philippe Taylor. We spent I got to hang out with Todd a little bit at Nationals last year. He's on the EMJ team with our buddy Jeff Pfeiffer, and he also won the overall at ITU Standard Worlds this year. So not just his age group, but the whole dang thing. And this is not a little known fact if you've ever talked to him more than like 3 minutes. The dude loves cinnamon rolls.
Yeah.
He loves cinnamon rolls.
Is he like Phil Gaiman with the cookies?
Absolutely.
He's like a cinnamon roll
His Instagram
connoisseur?
feed is either triathlon or cinnamon rolls.
Really?
Yep.
I am a fan of cinnamon rolls.
Yep. Loves them.
Huh. Murray, any shout outs here?
I'll shout out to the crew that I ran intervals with this morning. Had the Dixon family,
There you go.
Sarah, Ben, and John. Phil Scott, no relation. Jimmy Arnold. Kathy Jenkins, and my taskmaster wife, Susie, that puts me through it every day. We had a good group running intervals this morning.
That's quite the good
Which is a huge value. I mean, we've talked about it before. We mentioned having a training group that helps keep you motivated on days where you maybe wouldn't be otherwise is great. So having that support system and people that will help push you, I mean, that's awesome.
Any other shout outs?
I think that'll do. We'll shout out some others in a minute.
We'll throw it in there.
We'll shame some.
Okay.
There we go.
You want to talk about Wolfman?
Coming up, Terrapin Racing will be putting on the Wolfman Duathlon. It's the 31st year at Shelby Farms. And if you're not familiar with it, it's a 3-mile trail run followed by a 6-mile mountain bike on the Tour de Wolf Trail and another 1-mile run. So it's a great race if you enjoy trail running, if you enjoy off-road. And it's kind of a tradition for everybody to kick the year off.
Yep.
Dale has done it a number of times and had some pretty good races out there, and
Enjoy it.
And we enjoy putting it on, and it's good for the park, and hope we can get a lot of people out there.
My favorite Wolfman story is not the success I've had, but the time I got second place. Jeff Pfeiffer, I was just talking about, and I came into transition together, and I was a little quicker than him out of transition. And he I would say, he panicked and ran the last mile with his helmet on because
You forgot to take it
I
off?
got out ahead of him, and he beat me. So
He beat you with the helmet on?
yeah, he did. So
Must have been an arrow helmet.
good on you, Jeff.
There we
At
go.
least it wasn't a wetsuit.
Right? Yeah.
So Murray has been racing for quite a while, has seen a lot, and we wanted to talk to him today about himself, his past, present, and future in triathlon, and get an idea of how he's kept the love for this long. So Murray, kind of give us an idea of when you started triathlon, why you got into it in the first place, and then kind of give us an idea of how much you've raced over the years.
Well, I had a friend named Tom Jortner who passed away about 10 years ago, but Tom and I had been bike riding together for a number of years. And I had seen the Memphis in May race. It used to cross Germantown Parkway when it was a point-to-point race from Lakeland to Plow Park. And I lived backing up to Germantown Parkway. At the time it was Germantown Road. It was 2-lane. Nobody ever was on it. And I saw all these people standing at the corner. I saw the bikes coming by for the race. And I said, that looks like it'd be fun to do. And my friend Tom had decided he would like to do it. Some people he worked with out at Plow did the race. And so we said, hey, we're going to do it. We started going to Memphis State to the Master Swim, got to where we could dog paddle the length of the pool back and forth.
That's good enough, right?
And we were already pretty good on the bike. And we then decided, well, we'll do a 5K. So we did Youth Village's 5K. And we were ready.
There you go.
We were ready for it.
Ready or not, right?
Ready to crush it.
And went out, and the swim was the swim. I think it took me, I've always been a pretty good swimmer, but I was still backstroking and breaststroking, my way through part of it, but got out in decent time. For the bike, considering I'd never been in a bike race before, I think I was 19.5 miles an hour, and it's got some hills out there. And I got in the run, and I was doing pretty well. It was a girl I was running with, and it was kind of back and forth. Kept thinking, I'm going to get her. I'd pass her, and then I was gassed, and she passed me. Got to the finish line, and the finish, if you're familiar with the current road race series, 5K or 10K at Plow Park.
Okay.
Yeah.
At about mile 6, you come up a hill right at that playground.
Yep.
And that's where the finish line was for the triathlon. I came up there, and she nips me at the very end. Then I noticed they're interviewing her for TV. I'm thinking, well, what's the deal? And the conversation over there was something, well, how was your race? Well, pretty good. I hadn't been able to train. I just had my baby 4 weeks ago. And so that's when I decided if I'm going to do this, I might want to train a little more. But like everybody else, back then you didn't get the results online. They were printed out. Took a couple of weeks for them to come to you. And by then you'd forgotten how bad some of the things were in the race.
So you
Look
get
at
to
it.
relive it, huh?
Well, then you look at them and you say, I could have really done a little bit better here or there. If I'd done that, I would have beaten so-and-so. And then so the next thing I knew, I'm signed up for the Mite.
There you go.
So what year was this?
That was 1987.
Okay.
And it's probably the 5th Memphis in May.
Okay.
Originally Memphis in May.
83, I believe.
Yeah, it was originally held out at Shelby Forest.
Yep.
And then they moved it to Lakeland. And then when things grew up so much around Germantown Parkway and all that, they moved it out to Millington.
So how big was Memphis in May back then?
They had a limit. I mean, you had to sign up early to get in. I believe 550 people.
Okay.
They were professionals.
Yeah.
It was they paid money to professionals, so they were here. It was one of the bigger triathlons around. In fact, I believe it was 1990, it was an Ironman qualifier.
Mm-hmm.
So quite a few people from Memphis that year qualified. I didn't, but a lot of my friends did and got to go to Kona that year by winning at Memphis in May.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always been a point of the history of Memphis in May that I've thought was really interesting. That at one point they were allowing qualifications in through Olympic distance races.
And there's a lot of people that we all know. Steve Stone, that does timing for Best Times, owns it. He got to go to Kona that year. Steve was a great triathlete back in that time period. Lucia Colbert did. Judy Vandergrift, who doesn't race anymore but still around. But there were quite a few local people that did it that year, and all did pretty well.
Yeah.
So first one, and you were obviously hooked a few weeks. A few weeks after you see the results and you sign up for Mite.
Well,
how many races did you do the first year?
Well, no, a week later, I decided, hey, I've done a triathlon. I'm going to go and do a century ride. Not a wise decision. I was great for about 60 miles, and then, it was the death march back in to get back, and I thought, gosh, I really do need to train. But, yeah, I went ahead and did Mite that year, and at that race, one of the guys that ran with me this morning, Phil Scott, that's where I met him, and we've been friends ever since, and it was one of those Kennedy-Lincoln moments. Back then, they mailed out your entry packet, and we were standing side by side and went up to say, hey, we never got our packet. What's your name? Scott. Why hadn't you gotten it? I moved. And then we find out, where'd you grow up? We grew up within about 5 or 6 blocks from each other in East Memphis.
Oh, wow.
So on and on. So we've been friends for a long time. A lot of the people that I'm still friends with from that early group of people that raced.
So over the years, I would just give an estimation on how many triathlons you've done over the year.
Probably 230-ish.
So what's that? What's the average there for you?
I'm not sure because I went 6 years without racing in that time period.
Okay.
I kind of got to the point I thought, well, I can't run like I used to, and gee, it's just not my thing. And then I got in with another group of people that asked, Leslie Brainerd actually, when she had moved to Memphis, taught me into swimming and biking with them. And then Pam Ruth was making me volunteer at her races. And I figured,
Still is, right?
Yeah, still is. And said, well, if I'm going to be doing all the training and I'm going to be there, I might as well race.
Yeah.
So I started racing again. And then I got to where I was doing 6 or 8 and then 10 or 12, 15 races a year.
Yeah.
And just got to where I really enjoyed it again.
I know that pretty much any race that I go to in the region here, whenever people start congregating toward the swim start, I'm always looking for you and Keith Woods and a couple other people that I just know are going to be at like every race in the area, no matter what.
Keith and I go way back. We've had competition between each other going back for quite a while. He was starting about the time that I was stopping the first time. And then when I came back, we were really competitive with each other. Keith's a really good guy, and we have a lot of fun with competing each other and ragging on each other.
So I know we kind of have jumped into this a little bit about how, you can get so enthralled into your training, and then all of a sudden, whatever happens, life happens or something like that, and now you just can't either train enough, or you're not able to get to the level that you were at, and then it kind of, it's kind of disheartening, and then it can get you out of the sport. But then, you talked about how kind of all it took really was the right group of people to kind of convince you to get back in. Would you say for your longevity in the sport, like the group, the community has been like a huge part of that?
Yeah, because again, most of the people I socialize with, even away from racing, are people I race with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it makes a big part of it. And I think when you get to a certain point in life and you're on that downhill side, you can only improve so long, and your times aren't quite what they used to be. Mentally, it's different. But the people that I've seen that have stuck it out all along, they just kind of deal with it and say, well, I'm compared to everybody else, I'm doing pretty darn well.
Yep.
And it's more than just the time. It's socializing with people and staying fit. I look at a lot of people that I went to high school with, the ones that are still alive.
Oh, yeah.
And, they look at me like I'm some kind of freak for some of the things I do. And, think about the things we do. They're not normal. Normal people don't go out on a 100-mile bike ride and say, what I did this weekend.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's so easy for us as athletes to, everything's relative, right? Mm-hmm. And you get in the sport and you are competitive and you're comparing yourselves to other people in the sport. But when you actually kind of step back away from that and think about, when I first started cycling, I thought riding 50 miles was totally ridiculous and like an impossible thing. So I think it is a good thing for people to step back a little bit and kind of see everything you have done and just, take some positives out of the fact that, you're staying active, you're staying fit, you're involved in this very healthy community. And you're a lot better off than you would be otherwise, even if you're not as fast as you once were, or you don't hit the time you were hoping for.
Yeah, comparing with your younger self, it's kind of a losing game. You really need to be comparing yourself with other people, and even not even comparing. Just, hey, did I go out? Did I give everything I had?
Yep,
exactly. Because there are people that I race with that I've known a long time. If we both do our very best, they're going to kill me. It's just the way it is. And I know who they are. If I go out and have a great race and they have a terrible race, well, maybe you can do it. But that's not really the important thing. The important thing is going out and enjoying it. And at the end saying, I went out there, I gave everything that I really had. I did the best that I could do, and I'm proud of that.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about just being happy with, like, that's why they have age groups, right? Like there's an inevitable part in life where you start to get older and you just cannot physically improve the way you used to or recover. I mean, I guess a better way to put it, if you're looking physiology wise, you just can't recover from the same stuff. So yeah, at some point you have to kind of realign your expectations and your goals. And we have several people who we coach who were like super competitive, super like laser focused, in their 20s and 30s, and now they're in their 40s and 50s, families, running businesses, and they just don't have the time to get, even if they could, they don't have the time to do the training to get back to where they were in their 20s and 30s, even if it was possible. So we spend a lot of time recentering their expectations and their goals to align with where they're at in their life right now. And that's huge for a lot of people, because otherwise you get discouraged and you're like, I can't do anymore, because you're so hell bent on the numbers and hitting times that
where
you
you once were. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. In my career, I traveled a lot, and I would always try to schedule things around where I was staying in a place that I could run.
Excellent.
That had a good workout fitness room in case I couldn't get outside and do something. But still, you don't have that time. And on the road, you eat terribly. You're going to wherever everybody wants to eat, have a big meal. But when you get those 20 and 30 minute time periods that you can work out, it's getting the most out of it.
Absolutely.
Instead of just going out and banging out 10 or 12 miles, it's going out there and really getting that intensity level up, getting the heart rate up, and then recovering. But, recovery it's the hardest thing I have now.
Yep.
So what do you find, now versus where you were at previously? So maybe in your peak, how much have you had to scale back, or how much more do you have to think about the recovery? How's the training changed, would you say?
I think I've changed in just over the last few years to where I have some social rides and things. In the past, I'd go out and want to hammer every ride. And, do an interval workout, and then, just I'm dead.
Uh-huh.
And the next day I'm supposed to do these workouts, and I'm just too tired to do it. They're emotionally worn out.
Yeah.
The mental side of it is as bad as the physical side. But now I go in a couple of times a week. I go on a bike with a bike group, and it's more, for me, a social ride, low intensity. I do the same thing with a run once a week. It's a long run, but it's not...
From an overall training stress standpoint, it's not something that's demolishing you. Huh?
Exactly. And that allows me to recover, and then I'm still able to get a handful of really good workouts in during the week, but it gives me time to recover.
So like run, bike, swim, how many workouts of each of those are you doing each week?
I normally swim about 4 times a week.
Okay.
And one of them will be fairly long, and 2 will be really high intensity, and one of them is just go out and swim a mile.
Okay.
Then bike, I'll usually get in about 4, and then I'll run 3 or 4 times a week. Okay. Running's always been my most difficult thing. I don't have the body really for triathlete.
Because you're tall. How tall are you?
I'm 6'6".
Okay.
And I weigh, right now I'm 215. So,
okay.
That's a lot of weight to push over a hill and just move.
So has that changed a lot from where you were in your 40s, say, or?
Not really.
Same frequency. You've just had to kind of scale back intensity some, or?
Probably a little the length of the workouts.
Okay.
I'll shorten them a little bit.
Okay.
Intensity, I'll try to keep high.
Okay.
But I used to not take those kind of social days. Yeah. 10 years ago, I was going out and we were just doing that workout, and we were focused completely in on it.
Uh-huh.
And, if I do that now, I'm just so tired. I don't get a lot of benefit out of the workout.
Yeah. Yeah, hammer, 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 and then never recover.
Yeah.
Usually there's the downward spiral has already begun, and you're just not going to get quality out of anything after that.
So as a taller, and naturally heavier just because of your size, injuries over the course of the year, has that been something that has plagued you or not? Or have you stayed relatively healthy?
I've been pretty healthy, which is amazing, really.
Especially in this sport.
Yeah, my knees are a little bit now. I can feel them like I used to not feel them that way. But for the most part, I mean, everybody's had things like plantar fasciitis, things like that. But really, that's probably one of the reasons that I'm still able to race and train like I do compared to some of the people that I used to do a lot of working out with.
And were you kind of going through things, we talked about the events you've mentioned already, short course stuff. Are you someone who's dove a lot more into the long course? Have you stayed short course? Have you done a mix? What's your preference?
Well, I'm better in the short courses. I'm just able to exert a lot of power and intensity for a short period of time. But over the last 10 years, I've done 12 full Ironman.
Oh, wow.
And I had this friend in Huntington Beach, California, and she said, Murray, you've done all these triathlons, but you've never done an Ironman. Why don't you do one? And I told her if she would do it, I would do it. And I thought, well, she's never going to do it. She's never done more. She hadn't done more than a sprint.
Oh, really? Okay.
And so she called me back 2 weeks later and said, I signed up for Ironman Arizona. So
you're like, did I put that in writing? Did I put that one in writing?
So my friend Phil Scott, no relation, and we did the Great Floridian that year in 2009. So I've done one almost every year since then.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
nice.
I've done 12 total.
Favorite?
Now. I got to do Kona, and I got in the lottery.
Oh, excellent.
And Kona is just completely off the charts from the event.
Just
I didn't do that well,
right?
Yeah. I didn't have a great race, but it's incredible. Just
that racing environment alone. The race environment is great, but the climate, even though we have somewhat similar climates, it's still hard to prepare for that kind of.
Yeah, it's like a microwave.
Yeah, intense radiating heat. It's insane. So like with that, like what are some of the like key like races that you've done over the years that are either been your favorite as far as courses or like ones that are just been kind of stick in your brain as the most memorable ones for you?
Have you guys ever done Heart of Dixie?
I have not, no.
It is the most bizarre race that you will ever do. And it's my favorite.
Okay.
It's
bizarre in what manner?
Everything about it is funky. It starts in this little resort.
For those listening, not watching, there were some air quotes. We had the air quotes going.
And it starts in Louisville, Mississippi, and it goes about 27 miles down the road. It's point to point. It finishes in the Neshoba County Fairgrounds, and the last, I guess it's close to a mile, is in the fairgrounds and on the horse track. So you're running through the fairgrounds. There are these houses down there. They're like shotgun houses. Some of them are 3 stories tall. They're painted all different colors. There are people wandering around. The first time I did the race, I was in a Speedo, and I'm running into this fairgrounds, and there are these 2 guys sitting in the back of a pickup truck at 8 in the morning, drinking beer, in overalls with no shirt on. And they started yelling, "That ain't right, boy, that ain't right." So ever since then, that's been my favorite race.
That's hilarious.
They thought you were the odd one, right?
Yeah, it's
2 cultures colliding.
The whole thing is incredible.
That's hilarious. So what about like course-wise? Is that still your favorite?
Course-wise, I did Vineman in California. And that is part of that area that's been flooded recently on the Russian River. You swim in this little river. and you go through the redwood trees, and then part of the run was through vineyards.
Oh, cool.
So you got a lot of sightseeing in it, but it's still a tough course, and it's really beautiful out there.
Yeah.
So would you are you a person who would like try to plan vacations around triathlons, like destination stuff? Or I know, like for me, it's like,
how does your wife feel about that?
Well, she used to not be as into it as she is now. She started running about 15 years ago, and she's kind of had this epiphany that if she lets me go do it, then I have to take her running somewhere else. So a couple of years ago, we went up and did Marine Corps Marathon.
Okay.
We got in the lottery and we got pulled. It's 6 days before Ironman Florida, which I was signed up for. Ooh. So I got to do Marine Corps, and 6 days later, Ironman Florida. I did really well too, let me tell you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we do not recommend that from a race planning or a training standpoint.
But but she's pretty open for me doing them, and has been really supportive. And she's the one that trains me for those long runs. So.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, that's something we have quite a bit with athletes that we coach, where the person we're coaching is involved in a sport, and their significant other, it may be a totally different sport, but we found that it allows a similar mindset like that, like letting them get their training and then assisting your significant other in getting their training. It seems to be people that have stayed at it for longer. They have the significant other that is understanding that of the demands of the sport and the training that goes into it. And just the like for me personally, when I train, I'm a happier person than I am when I'm not training. So we found quite a bit that those that both are interested in the sport seem to stay at it for longer.
Well, the downside to it is that she knows when I do something that's messed up too. Like last year I did Tupelo Marathon, and I've done it a number of times. I do it, and then I go and do Florida, which is a couple of months later, and it kind of usually set me up real well for it. Yeah. Except last year she said, "I told you not to go and do that race. You never got over it, Bob." So anyway.
Yeah, when she's your coach, it could be a little bit a little bit tougher, right? That's hilarious.
We could get into the husband-wife coach-athlete relationship, but we probably should not.
Yes,
but the reality is she's very supportive of it, and she always has been.
Yeah, that's great.
That's awesome.
So, kind of one of the main things we wanted to get out of you here, Mary, is over the years, like what are some of the other things that you think has helped you kind of keep your love for racing and a triathlon? I know we talked about the community part of it and stuff like that, but what other things would you say are kind of the key things?
Well, one thing is having something that other people either, I won't say can't do, but won't do.
Yeah.
That they're not willing to go out there and really put in the effort to do it. Because, it doesn't have to be an Ironman. We talk about Ironman a lot. Okay. But a lot of people just go out and run a 5K.
Sure.
But a lot of people that could do it aren't willing to go out there and do it. And I kind of take a lot of pride in, hey, I can go out there and do these races, and I get a lot of personal satisfaction out of that.
Yep.
And you see other people too that when they start, and they're able to do things, and they're able to move from this level to that level, whether it's from speed or setting a personal record in a race, or just being able to run a 10K or a half marathon the first time. I remember when I first ran a half marathon, I thought, wow, I can't believe I did that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of pride and satisfaction that goes into doing whatever the doing is, like you said, it's whether it's 5K, 10K, half full, any distance triathlon, people do see, we're weird people to a lot of people. So, they see what we do and they're like, either they think I would never do that. Like I could not do that, or I just have no interest in that. But the people who say I could never do that, those are the ones that we're kind of trying to inspire to say, well, maybe I could try it, maybe I could jump into it. But yeah, until you jump in and do it and complete something that other people think is this massive achievement, you haven't experienced the satisfaction of
what would you say to those people on the fence who are maybe looking at you and saying, wow, I can't believe he's doing what he's doing? Like, what would you say to them?
I'd say look at my wife, because she went from 15 years ago never having run probably more than a 5K one time in her life. And she's gone from that to she runs constantly now. I mean, that's her thing. She's run like 7 marathons, I think. She took it. She's not the fastest person, but she'll go out there and she will just go. And she takes a lot of pride in that. And, you know, that's part of it. And she's had a lot of friends that, you know, she's made from it that are very similar to her.
Absolutely.
That it's not about going out and winning the race. It's being able to go out there and complete that distance. And that, to me, that's really the most important thing. I mean, there's only a handful of people that are going to win the race.
Sure.
I mean, when you start, that's just not in the realm for most people. You can try, but you know, again, I've raced so much, I pretty much know before we start the race who's going to win and who's going to come in second. But that's not the important part. The important part's going out there and doing the best that you personally can do on that given day.
Exactly. And I think the excitement, like you mentioned, you know, with regards to your first ever race, the excitement you get looking at the people that were around you and saying, wow, you know, if I'd have done a little better on the swim, if I'd have trained a little more on the swim, done a little better on the bike, I mean, I could have leapfrogged 1 spot or 2 spots. And instead of you competing, you know, for the overall, it's like the race within a race kind of thing. And something that is motivating and driving is not to try to win the overall, but, well, I wonder what I could do to maybe jump a spot or 2. And I think people that, you know, if you've not done the sport before, you look at it and you're like, oh, either I don't think I could finish it, and just finishing is a huge win. But I guarantee you, it's the story we hear quite a bit. You know, once people finish a race, the amount of time and excitement spent, like looking at your results and the people who are around you. I mean, I guarantee you, everyone from a local 5K to a triathlon to an Ironman to you name it, is spending a lot of time like, ooh, next time I think this is what I can do. Here's where I can improve, and here's where I can get better. At the end of the day, that's the important thing for us.
I can cut 2 minutes off that darn transition.
Exactly.
I don't even have to work harder.
Exactly.
One of the most overlooked spots, right?
Yeah. So do you have any other kind of quick tips on somebody who's considering doing it to kind of like push them over the line and
find a group of people that aren't the fastest people in the world that just enjoy it. And there are a lot of groups like that around.
Tons.
I mean, I'm sure you guys train people that are a lot like that. There are groups at the YMCA or the different health clubs that are like that. There are teams, and I mean, my team, Terrapin, is that way, but Thunder, and there's several teams in Memphis that have rides every weekend, and they're not out there just trying to set a world record. They're out there to enjoy being out and get in a good ride.
And there are clubs like Terrapin and Thunder and Los Locos and everything all over the country.
Yeah.
And you can look up, if you're looking for a group to settle into or to kind of help get you in. And I will say that I've never met somebody who started a club or people who manage a club or anything like that. I've never met a club manager who is not completely willing to help somebody get into the sport. We'll go over and above to help people get into the sport. And you can find those clubs if you go to USA Triathlon's website. You can actually look up all the registered clubs in the country.
And just going, because I know swim is a big barrier for a lot of people. And you mentioned one of the first things you did was, join a master swim thing at the Y. And that's a great way to get plugged in as well to other people. And if they aren't involved in the sport, they're going to know people that are involved in the sport.
That's probably the number one thing that keeps people from doing triathlons is that swim, because they just don't feel comfortable. They haven't grown up swimming. And I mean, even I had been a lifeguard. I've done the mile swim when I was in the Boy Scouts and things like that. I was still intimidated the first time I went out there to do it. And you just have to get comfortable. I mean, now I go out there, whatever, the swim doesn't bother you at all once you're really used to it.
Yeah, I mean, for those looking into or considering kind of masters or anything like that, most of the time a masters group will have like graded lanes, so you're not going to be thrown right into the lane with somebody who's swimming 120s or 130s. There are different lanes, so you'll be in a lane with people that are similar speed to you. And there are actually a lot of masters groups even have a lane that for people that are like still working on technique that may not even do the workout itself. They'll just be in one lane working on lengths, technique and stuff like that. So there's a lot of great masters coaches out there that know how to break up the different levels really well and kind of appeal to everybody. Mm-hmm. So the last thing kind of we wanted to talk about is you've seen triathlon change over the years. The sizes of the races, how things have changed, how the kits have changed.
Yeah. How have the kits changed?
Well, the national champion's still wearing a Speedo, so not much.
So everything's a trend, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Come and go.
There's this guy, and I think he still lives in Collierville, named Roy Crossman. Do you guys know Roy?
I've not met Roy.
When I first came back from taking my break from triathlon, I was doing Mite, and it was Roy's very first triathlon. And I came out and I had on a Speedo with a big skull and crossbones across the butt. And so before the race...
That was the intimidation factor right there, right?
Before the race, Roy was standing there talking to a friend and said, well, I don't know how I'm going to do in this race, but I'm going to beat that guy with the skull pants. Well, in the finisher photo, when he's coming across the line, there I am right next to him. And he's a very good athlete. He's a great runner. Uh-huh. But for years, I didn't tell him. I started 5 minutes behind him in the next wave.
We were waiting on a Speedo story.
So do you still rock the Speedo?
I do in the pool.
There we go.
I do in the pool. Got to wear it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've kind of given it
pride?
up. My wife has shamed me out of wearing it in races.
She has?
She heard other people talking bad about me, so she made me go with shorts.
No way. I say bring it back this season.
I may have to bring it back.
Grow the mustache, rock the Speedo.
Yeah.
I like it. So how have you seen the sport, change, evolve, grow, decline? I mean, what have you noticed?
Well, there are a lot more races today. So it kind of spreads the number of people that do triathlons out. I think Ironman also has kind of had a negative impact on the grassroots level. I mean, it's like, I got to go do an Ironman to really do. And that's really not the case. I mean, sprints, if you can go out and do a sprint, that's great. If you can do an Olympic, that's great. But people get so focused into doing those ultra distance races that they kind of give up. And it's tough because we all want to support our local races. This is the sport that we really love. Mm-hmm. And when we have people going other places to do it versus racing Memphis in May or the Buffalo Bill that we got out here, Dragonfly, it makes it tough to be able to put on these events. So I really encourage people, if you are really into triathlon, please get out there and do our local events, support our organizations that are out there putting these events on for you.
Yeah.
We don't want to lose any of them because they're really important.
Yeah. Yeah. If we continue to lose events, then it's going to be tougher, less opportunities to get new people into the sport, and especially in the sprint distance. That's the gateway usually into the sport, because most people aren't going to say, "Oh, look, an Ironman triathlon, I could do that for my first one." So
we encourage you not to do that.
Yeah,
I had a guy behind me in line at Louisville one year. It was his first triathlon. I don't know if he finished. But
it's crazy.
Last weekend we were at the Expo over in Nashville, and our tent was right next to Ironman's tent, and they were just there essentially to be involved with the community and kind of give back, answer questions, and they were saying the same thing. Like, before an event, they were having people, raise hands, and there was a big percentage that it was not only their first Ironman, but it was their first event. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
That's
I think that, well, they've done such a good job with marketing that a lot of people who are not in the sport, they see that as triathlon. That's triathlon to them. They don't necessarily understand that there's way more people that are doing the shorter events, and that there's a lot more of those shorter events around the country, probably even some in your backyard.
And a sprint is a lot more fun than a full Ironman.
It is.
It's a lot more fun.
if you're pretty fast, you're done with the whole triathlon faster than you'd be done with the swim in an Ironman event.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir here. The short course is my favorite by far. And the big thing too is we talk about community a lot and keeping people in the sport. At the end of a sprint or an Olympic race, there's always like really good synergy between the people that are at the race, and everyone's having a good time, laughing and talking and telling war stories and how terrible they raced and all that stuff. But at the end of an Ironman, you're lucky to find anybody you know, let alone chat with anybody. I mean, I've sat like next to like 10 people, like after the race, trying to get some food in me, and didn't say a word to anybody until I found my family. Or like, it's just it's a whole different feel. Like post race is a whole different feel. It's grand. Their events are grand and they're great, and it's a huge achievement. But to stay in the sport and to grow the sport, get into the short course stuff, and you're gonna like really enjoy the community aspect of triathlon.
I'll tell you, the new race, I guess this will be the third year for it, the Buffalo Bill. Mm-hmm. That is a great race to start.
It's the super sprint.
Yeah, they got the super sprint and the sprint, but the whole thing is compact. It's all in town. I mean, gosh, you can finish the race and be home by 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and the course is great. So if you haven't done it, it's good. And the swim course is laid out by a real expert.
I was going to get into Murray lays out a lot of the swim courses for us.
So if you're complaining about your Garmin reading it being too long.
Your Garmin is wrong. That's what I will tell you.
That's hilarious.
So, any other quick last minute words on how we continue to grow the sport?
Well, I mean, the main thing is finding younger people to come in and
invite people.
Yeah. I mean, we have a few, but it's kind of difficult to get young people. They've got to have the right background to start, either cross country or swimming. Yeah. There aren't very many young people that start cycling. Mm-hmm. So getting those people and getting them out to do it. And I think part of that comes from getting them exposed by doing teams. Mm-hmm. I mean, all the local races have teams. So put 2 or 3 people together and find yourself a runner, find yourself a swimmer, a cyclist, and there you go. You're out there and you see it, and the next time you don't want to do a team. You want to do it by yourself.
Absolutely.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, relays are, I think, I brought out of the triathletes that I coach, I want to say at least 30% of them got into the sport because they did a relay the first time. And then they're like, well, I could do that myself. Like, it's a huge gateway into actually doing the sport on your own. And it's a ton of fun because it basically turns multi-sport into a team effort, which you don't want to let your teammates down. And
that extra accountability there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My wife has done a number of relays. Her problem is she wants to get out in the water and socialize with everybody that's swimming around her if she sees somebody she knows. But one year she was down, I think it was heat wave, and she went out and did the swim, and she came out and she turned the race number into a volunteer and say, I'm quitting. I'm through. And they said, what do you mean? She goes, well, I'm not going to do the rest of the race. But you're doing so well. I mean, look how well you've done. She goes, you don't understand. I don't have a bike.
She signed up for the whole thing?
She signed up just to do the swim.
Just to do the swim?
That's funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I've not heard that one before.
The bike, the bike is kind of for a lot of people, it's the equipment piece that holds them from doing the sport. So I would say if you're one of those experienced triathletes who has a garage full of bikes like some of us do, and you know somebody who's looking to get into a sport, offer to let them borrow it. Especially if it's been sitting there for more than if it has dust on it, air up the tires and let somebody borrow it so they can get in their first event.
Excellent.
Awesome. Murray, we appreciate you coming out and chatting with us for a while. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us today. We will catch you guys next time. Adios.
See ya.